What's up everyone, and before we get into this absolute bombshell that just destroyed the entire WWE universe, let me ask you something that's going to make your blood boil. How many times does one man have to sacrifice everything, his dignity, his soul, his own brother, before he finally snaps? Because on June 16, 2023, we witnessed something that nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, saw coming. And if you think Roman Reigns didn't deserve what happened to him, then you haven't been paying attention for the last 3 years. Jey Uso just did what every single one of us has been screaming for him to do, and I guarantee by the end of this video, you're either going to be jumping out of your seat cheering, or you're going to be furious defending the tribal chief. Either way, drop your tick in the comments right now, because this is the moment that changes everything, and if you're not watching until the very end, you're going to miss why this attack means the bloodline as we know it is officially dead and buried. Let's rewind for just a second, because context is everything here, and trust me, this is where it gets absolutely insane. For over 1,000 days, Roman Reigns has held the WWE Universe hostage with those titles, building an empire on the backs of his family, manipulating them, controlling them, treating them like soldiers in his army rather than his own flesh and blood. And Jey Uso, the right-hand man, the enforcer, the one who gave up everything including his own identity, has been there through it all, taking orders, acknowledging the tribal chief, doing the dirty work while Roman took all the glory. We've watched Jey transform from one half of the greatest tag team in WWE history into nothing more than Roman's attack dog, and every single week we've seen that internal struggle in his eyes, that pain, that conflict between family loyalty and self-respect. Jimmy Uso tried to warn him, tried to pull him back from the edge, but Jey was in too deep, too brainwashed by Roman's manipulation, too convinced that this was the only way to honor his family. But something changed on that Friday night on SmackDown. Something finally broke inside Jey Uso, and when it broke, it shattered into a million pieces that can never be put back together. The setup was perfect, almost too perfect, and that's what made it so devastating. Roman Reigns was standing in the ring doing what he does best, talking about his greatness, his dominance, his unquestionable position at the head of the table, reminding everyone that he's not just the tribal chief but the greatest champion of all time. The crowd was electric, tensions were already high, because everyone could feel that something was off, something in the air that night just felt different. Jey was standing there ringside like he always does, watching his cousin parade around with those titles, listening to Roman take credit for victories that Jey helped secure, watching Roman disrespect the legacy that Jey built with his own hands and his own blood. And you could see it in Jey's face. That mask of loyalty was cracking, the foundation of blind faith was crumbling, and everything that had been building for months, all that resentment, all that anger, all that suppressed rage was bubbling to the surface like a volcano about to erupt. Then it happened, and when I tell you the entire arena went silent, I mean you could hear a pin drop. Roman turned his back, just for a second, probably thinking he was safe, because he's always been safe with Jey, because Jey has never given him a reason to doubt that loyalty. But that 1 second was all it took. Jey slid into the ring with a look in his eyes that we've never seen before, not anger, not rage, but something deeper, something more primal, something that looked like a man who had finally woken up from a nightmare and realized he'd been living in hell. The sprocket came out of nowhere, connecting with Roman's jaw with such force that you could feel it through the screen, and Roman dropped like a ton of bricks, completely blindsided by the one person he thought would never betray him. The crowd exploded, the commentary team lost their minds, and Jey stood over Roman's fallen body not with regret but with liberation, like a man who had just broken free from chains that had been suffocating him for years. But here's where it gets even more intense, because Jey didn't just hit him once and walk away. No, this wasn't a moment of temporary insanity or a heat-of-the-moment decision. Jey kept going, and that's what tells you everything you need to know about how deep this goes. Another sprocket, then another, each one more vicious than the last, each one representing every time Roman made him feel small, every time Roman took credit for Jey's work, every time Roman manipulated him into doing something that went against his moral code. Jey was unleashing years of pent-up frustration, and it was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Security rushed the ring, officials tried to pull him back, but Jey was possessed, consumed by this need to finally stand up for himself, to finally show Roman that he's not just a pawn in his game, that he's not just a soldier following orders, that he's Jey Uso and he deserves respect. The aftermath was pure chaos, and social media absolutely melted down within minutes. Roman was laid out in the center of the ring, his reign of terror momentarily halted by the one person who knew all his weaknesses, who had been by his side through every battle, who had studied every move and strategy. Jey stood at the top of the ramp, chest heaving, eyes wild, pointing back at Roman with a look that said this is just the beginning. And that's what makes this so much more than just an attack. This is a declaration of war. This is the start of what could be the most personal and brutal feud we've seen in years. Because this isn't about titles or championships or main event spots. This is about family, betrayal, redemption, and proving that you're more than just someone's shadow. Now here's where the debate gets absolutely heated, and I want you to really think about this before you sound off in the comments. Was Jey justified? Did Roman deserve this? And before you rush to defend the tribal chief, let me remind you of everything Roman has done. He manipulated Jey into turning on his own brother, forced him to choose between family and family, made him compete in matches where the stakes were psychological torture, constantly belittled him in front of the entire roster, took credit for accomplishments that required Jey's sacrifice, and never once showed genuine appreciation or respect for the man who literally gave up his identity to serve. Roman Reigns built his empire by using people, and Jey was the foundation that Roman stood on while pretending he built it all himself. So when you ask if this attack was deserved, you have to consider that Jey didn't just wake up one day and decide to turn on his cousin. This was the result of years of systematic emotional abuse and manipulation. The storytelling here is absolutely phenomenal, and this is why WWE is must-watch television right now. They've been planting seeds for this moment for months, little cracks in the armor, brief moments where Jey questioned orders, times when you could see the doubt creeping in. And they did it so subtly that when the explosion finally came, it felt earned, it felt real, it felt like the natural progression of a relationship that was built on a toxic foundation. This isn't just shock value for the sake of shock value, this is masterclass long-term storytelling that pays off in the most satisfying way possible. Every argument between Jey and Jimmy, every time Roman disrespected Jey, every victory that required Jey to compromise his morals, it all led to this one moment where Jey finally said enough is enough. And let's talk about what this means for the future, because the implications are massive. The bloodline, the faction that has dominated WWE for years, is now fractured beyond repair. You can't come back from this. You can't just have the conversation and work it out, because Jey crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. This sets up potentially the biggest match of the year, maybe even the biggest match of the decade, because when these two finally square off one-on-one, it's going to be war. Everything Roman has built, his legacy, his empire, his claim to being the greatest, is now under threat from someone who knows him better than anyone, who knows all his secrets, all his weaknesses, all his fears. Jey Uso isn't just another challenger, he's the one person who can expose Roman for who he really is, and that's what makes this so dangerous and so compelling. The emotional weight of this storyline cannot be overstated. These aren't just characters playing roles, this feels real because the history between them is real. Jey and Roman are actually a family. They've known each other their entire lives, they've traveled the road together, they've built legacies together, and now all of that is tainted by betrayal and resentment. When they finally face each other in that ring, it's not just going to be about winning or losing, it's going to be about pride, respect, validation, and proving who deserves to sit at the head of the table. This is the kind of storytelling that creates legendary moments, the kind that people will be talking about for decades. So here's what I need from you right now, and this is important. Drop a comment and tell me where you stand. Are you Team Jey or Team Roman? Do you think Jey was justified in attacking his tribal chief, or do you think he just made the biggest mistake of his career? Do you want to see Jey dethrone Roman and finally get the respect he deserves, or do you think Roman is going to destroy Jey for this betrayal? And most importantly, smash that like button if you think this is the beginning of the end for Roman Reigns' historic championship reign, and subscribe because we're going to be covering every single twist and turn of this storyline as it unfolds. Share this video with every WWE fan you know, because everyone needs to be talking about this moment. The Bloodline Civil War has officially begun, and June 16, 2023 will go down as the night Jey Uso finally became his own man, and trust me, you're not going to